Welcome to A Growing Concern. We're very fortunate tonight to have Zaher Wahab with us, who's a local professor out at Lewis and Clark. And every year he travels to his home country of Afghanistan and works there for the Department of Education, or whatever they call it back there.
Ministry of
Higher Education, right.
Yes.
Then he comes back to Portland and teaches classes and once a year comes on our program to talk about what he's seen over there. And I'm sure that with the uptick in Obama's move to bring more folks over there, that you might have something to talk about. We'll just do an update. We've got a whole DVD full of photographs to show you, just to bring you right on the bottom, the bottom line of what's going on over there in Afghanistan. And we'll just move right on ahead with that. Welcome to the programs out here.
Thank you, Jim, for having me.
It's always great to bring you on here. We've got a little map here that maybe you can hold up and then show a little bit about what's going on here. Over the other way, there we go. That's Afghanistan there, and I think
and you can see the neighbors.
Right, and then he just flashed to the one that's on the wall, and you can put that one down there now. And Afghanistan is surrounded by Pakistan and Iran and
Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and a little bit of China in the very northeast of the country.
Northeast of the country.
Yeah.
And I know that there's no oil there, but it's in the route of a pipeline, possibly.
Yes, actually, this is one of the problems. Unfortunately, Afghanistan's strategic location makes it a very strategically important place, but Afghanistan itself also has oil and gas now, according to the geological surveys and also the surveys done by the Russians earlier. It has uranium, it has copper, which is now being excavated by the Chinese. So it's very strategically located, and all of the best way to access the oil and gas of Central Asia is to build a pipeline through western part of Afghanistan and then to Pakistan and India. And some people now refer to Afghanistan as Pipelineistan because of its location. Yeah, and that's, I think, what the struggle is about. Many people think that the so-called war on terror and President Obama's war on Al-Qaeda, these are sort of smoke screens, that the real struggle is between, the West, the United States, and on the one hand, and China, Russia, and India, and other countries on the other hand, how to access the oil and gas of Central Asia.
Mm-hmm. And when you say Central Asia, what countries do you mean?
In particular, Turkmenistan, which is sitting on oceans of oil and gas, but also Uzbekistan to some extent, in the Caspian Sea. If people can see the map, the Caspian Sea, which is sort of a little north of Turkmenistan. And the Caspian Sea also, as you know, is sitting on literally oceans and oceans of oil and gas. So all of that. And at this point, a lot of the gas and oil of Central Asia goes through Russian pipelines, either to Russia or other parts of Western Europe and other parts. But the Central Asian countries would like to free themselves from this dependency on Russian pipelines, but also it would be much more efficient to access the oil and gas through Afghanistan and then to Pakistan and the Indian Ocean.
It'll go south. Well, I know that the Caspian Sea is right there on the border with Russia.
Yes, right. Yes. Well, the Caspian Sea is surrounded by Russia, Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, Iran, and they have not decided how to divide the resources that are under the Caspian Sea, and that's yet to be determined.
Well, I know that I've read that Russia has been kind of using its reserves of gas as a whip and withholding it from people in order to drive the prices up and do things like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I think it's understandable, but that's one reason why the West and Central Asian countries and Iran to some extent, Iran also would like to have a pipeline built through Afghanistan and export its oil and gas. So the point, I think, is that Afghanistan, it is a country, so it's important because there are 25 million people living there, and they have been there for thousands of years. It has a culture, it's a society with history, and it has a lot of resources. But again, this idea of that, President Obama with his new strategy to disable, disrupt, and dismantle and defeat Al-Qaeda, I think this is really a smokescreen because there are very few Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, they talk about the enemy there is the Taliban.
Well, that's also too simplistic, I think. Right now, it's true that the Taliban were in power when the United States invaded in October 2001. And then the Taliban sort of disappeared and then re-emerged, in beginning 2003 and 2004. And now they occupy perhaps 2/3 of the country, or at least they have influence in 2/3 of the country, according to Ministry of Interior and NATO and the American forces. But right now, the picture is much more complicated. It's not just the Taliban who are resisting the occupation and the American NATO forces, but there are also other groups like Hizb Islami of Hikmatyar and another party of Haqqani. The drug mafia, the Afghan and international mafia, they're their own, force.
Mm-hmm.
There are some independent freelance commanders who do not want stability in Afghanistan. So you have all kinds of people who are creating, mischief, but all kinds of people resisting the occupation, the American NATO occupation, for their own particular reasons. The Taliban simply happen to be the more prominent and more well-known, although they are, a major. And the fighting now, it goes on all over the country. So it's not really just in the south and southeast where the Taliban happen to be mostly, but also there's a Pashtun areas. But there's fighting going on in the north. In fact, our commander, the commander of the NATO American forces, McAllister, was saying that he's concerned about now the fighting in the north of Kabul, where there are very few Pashtun in Taliban, but also in the western part of the country in Farah. So, again, there are all kinds of people fighting the international forces for their own particular reasons. Sometimes the reasons might coincide, and other times, they have their own reasons.
Is the United States government, they're fighting all these, but are they under cover of night, maybe arming some of them to fight, to try to get them to fight each other and have all the CIA stuff that you read about? Because they were doing that in Iraq. They were arming some of the were enemies, and then they were trying to change the dynamic. Is all that going on too?
Yes, right around election time, the American election, it became very clear that this is a quagmire, as they put it, and a stalemate. And in fact, many of our generals on the ground and diplomats were saying the war is being lost to the resistance, mainly the Taliban, and so hence the new strategy. So what President Obama has done is to intensify the war, send in more troops, and there will be more troops, 17,000 more, but also to extend the war into Pakistan. And the other thing they have done and are trying to do, they've been doing this for some time now. Not only were the Americans, the CIA, and our special forces working with the Northern Alliance, which was the opposition to Taliban, during the time of the initial invasion in 2001, but as we see these days in the press, some of these warlords, like Rashid Dostum in particular, turned out to be, butchers, war criminals, because his people, in conjunction with the CIA and special forces, killed at least maybe 3,000 to 4,000 Taliban war prisoners who had given up, and were guaranteed safe passage and all that. So what they're trying to do now also is to try to put these militias, if you will, of non-military Afghans, paid people money and say, you defend your village. Here are some weapons, here are some uniforms, and we'll pay you maybe $200 or $300 a month, and you protect your own village from the Taliban. In some cases it's working, in other cases it's not working, and that in itself, in Iraq it was called the Sons of Iraq. This is very controversial because some people would say the people you're hiring to fight the Taliban, they're the same ethnic group, and ideologically they may be more akin to the Taliban than to the Westerners. You may be arming training and paying the wrong people, that these very same people could turn against the U.S. and NATO forces.
Exactly like Osama bin Laden.
Yes.
So it's interesting that you mentioned that, because Iraq seems to be taking so much of the spotlight, and we keep talking and hearing about, you know, the CIA and the torture and all that, but you just said that, you know, in Afghanistan we killed 3,000 prisoners. And that's, you know, that's a whole lot worse than torture, but we never hear about it.
Well, I mean, the things that have been done, and this is one thing that I don't think any Afghan, regardless of their ethnicity or ideology or whether they like the Taliban or not, or like the NATO, one of the things is that literally thousands and thousands of civilians have been killed since, you know, the 2001 invasion. Most recently, and this is one of the things that you know, has even upset President Karzai, the man that the Americans trained and groomed and put there, and also now protects him. But you know, this aerial bombing through drones and you know, pilotless planes at night in particular, there have been numerous cases. In fact, even just 2 days ago, they again bombed the wrong house and killed, you know, an innocent family, all of them. And you know, recently there have been cases where 140 people were killed in one bombing, just to get together. It was a wake. But the initial story that you referred to was this happened around November, December of 2001, when the Taliban were ejected from power in the northern part, in particular in Kunduz. The Taliban, there were about 8,000 of them, gave up. You know, they said, all right, you know, we surrender. And then the Northern Alliance and the American CIA, who paid General Dostum, who controlled that part of the country, they said, all right, we'll give you safe passage, you know, so you can go back to your villages and the foreigners can leave. But he put many, many of them in containers, just the way you would stack wood or something. And this was very hot. And literally 2,000 to 3,000 Taliban died. And this was filmed. There was a documentary, but it's called The Afghan Massacre.
I heard about that.
By Belgium. And this was done in 2003. And no American television network would show it except Democracy Now! And Amy Goodman.
Of course, Amy's the only real journalist out there.
That happened to be now resurfacing. And so we're dealing with the same people. Rashid Dostum, who was the commander, his people butchered at least 2,500 to 3,000 Taliban, in conjunction with, in the guidance of CIA and our own special forces. In that documentary, you see Americans actually also shooting, but also guiding the Northern Alliance forces to essentially, you know, kill, massacre thousands of Taliban. So this keeps happening, and Afghans are very, very angry with this most recent, you know, bombings and killing of civilians. This year, so far, about 900 civilians have been killed by aerial bombing, other than the
That's been documented.
Yes, yes.
So, yeah, I know that you've talked on the show in the past how the many billions of dollars are going to our forces over there, and the only millions of dollars are going in order to build schools and help the people that we've bombed our country. Does it seem like any of that's going to change, or is him bringing in 17,000 more troops just going to escalate that well, paradox where we're not?
Although President Obama is saying that the new American strategy would be to, as he put it, clear, hold, and develop, or the 3 Ds, defense, development, and diplomacy. His idea, and this is, again, McAllister, our general of the forces, they're saying there's no military solution to this conflict. This war is unwinnable.
There hasn't been for 2,000 years there.
Yeah, McKiernan before him, yeah, Afghanistan is referred to sometimes as the graveyards of empires. You know, Alexander the Great, the British, the Russians,
Persians,
and most recently the Americans. Everyone is convinced, you know, Holbrooke, the special representative, and Carl Eikenberry, our ambassador in Kabul, and you know, McKiernan, the commander before, and now McAllister, they're all saying there's no military solution to this. We have to win the population, and one way to do that is to provide them with security and development. But, you know, I have been going every year for the last 8 years, and I've seen a lot of these internationals in these NGOs, non-governmental organizations, and so-called aid agencies. One thing is that in comparison to, say, aid to other countries, post-conflict societies, Afghanistan gets very little. It's about $50 per person per year in terms of development. Now, to give you an idea, I think the NATO American forces now are spending about $400 million a day on the military operation, and they're probably spending about $10 million on development, other than, training the police and the army and so forth. So there's very little, and we will see these pictures later on, there's very little development, and people are very, very angry. They're destitute, they're desperate, and they're very angry and say, where is the development?
Where are the jobs?
And where are the jobs, essentially, or food, or water, or housing, or anything,
How about the electricity and water? Has that improved any since last year?
Very little. Very little, and in fact, I was reading something, Kabul still doesn't have, most of it doesn't have regular piped water. Some parts get piped water for just a few hours every other day or every third day. The city still, it was a small city meant for about 500,000 people, and now we have 5 million people. So there's still no real regular electricity or regular water. There's no sewer system. There's no regular garbage collection. And most of the city does not have either paved roads or traffic lights. This is the capital. Now, once you leave the capital, most of the country is still in the Middle Ages.
I don't understand, though. What excuse does our government give for not being able to do that? Compared to the billions of dollars they're spending on the armed forces, it wouldn't take that much money to provide electricity, and it wouldn't, and at least haul the garbage away. I mean, what would it take?
Well, you will see, or classrooms, or just books, schools, universities, health clinics, food. The country, still half of the country depends on food aid. 90% of the Afghan government's budget, 90% of it, which is about $1 billion, this is the budget of a country, a government, 90% of it comes from foreign assistance. It can only generate about 10% of its own expenses. And per capita income is still $1 a day. The average income in Afghanistan is $1 a day. And this has not improved. Yes, you would think that, these hundreds of millions of dollars spent a day on death and destruction, with very little progress to show for, if this money had been spent and spent well, honestly, correctly on development, there would be no need for fighting. There will be no Americans killed, our tax dollars would not be wasted, and we will not be creating adversaries and enemies. So, but that's where we are, but you can understand the dynamics of power in politics, the military, industrial, congressional media complex in Washington and how it works.
It seems to me, if you look at it long enough, and after 8 years we've looked at it long enough, that the reason that they haven't helped the people is because they don't want to. It serves their dynamic better to have the people poor than to have the people helped.
Well, there's a school of thought, but remember President Bush, when initially he was invading Afghanistan, and then there was, he promised you, freedom, progress, prosperity, and women's liberation, and, doing away with narcotics and so forth. But then he said he was not in the business of national development. He was not really interested in, and also we need to remind our viewers that the Afghanistan invasion was sort of a quick decision, and it was meant to be a rehearsal for the real invasion of the Iraq War. So they moved very quickly after they ejected the Taliban from power and didn't think about what might happen later to the Taliban or to the opposition, the insurgency, or that we might build the country and make friends, win hearts and minds.
It wasn't on the
table.
table.
None of that, and I think President Obama might be trying to do that, but my point is that if you have a highly corrupt, ineffective, inefficient state apparatus where everyone is almost a thief in Afghanistan, either because they're desperate or because corruption has become a way of life, no matter how many dollars you pump in, it's not going to matter a great deal. But also if you have very mediocre, substandard, helpers, international assistance workers, they're not going to improve things very much. And this is what I'm afraid I'm seeing. People have said that of every dollar that is promised or pledged by the international community, whether it's Japan, the United States, or whoever it might be, maybe 15 cents end up in Afghanistan. The West either doesn't enter Afghanistan or is repatriated in the form of high salaries for these internationals, and and their perks and the just pure corruption.
It's just a cash cow for people.
There are some people, Afghans and internationals, who are getting very, very rich and very quickly and without any effort. And you will see some of these mansions, they call them narco mansions, you know, people that everyone knows had nothing a year ago, 2 years ago, or 8 years ago, now has more money than they know what to do with. You can see that. The despair. And this is one thing that would undo the country when everybody else leaves. This enormous disparity between a tiny, predatory, elite comprador class, you know, high government officials, people who work with aid agencies, and people who have access to development funds on the one hand, and then everybody else on the other hand, you know, 95% of the people who continue to suffer the same way. Jim, you have never seen such misery and such suffering and such pain. You can see it in people's faces. I mean, Kabul is, you know, it's like a third of the people are beggars, women, children, men, you know, respectable looking people. It's a very, very sad sight to see after all these years.
People have hope and they keep trying, and we're going to probably show some pictures right now. So if they're
hope, but intelligent hope, educated hope, you know, but hope with some discipline. I mean, I hope that Washington, what we need now, there's an election coming which we can talk about, you know, what we need is, again, an honest, effective, efficient, accountable, transparent state apparatus. There's an organization called Transparency International. When they rank countries on a scale for corruption, Afghanistan ends up at the very bottom, along with Nigeria, Iraq, and places like that.
at the bottom, meaning they're the most
173rd,
corrupt.
yes, the most
corrupt.
corrupt in the world. And those are the people that we put there.
Deliberately, apparently.
And we protect, we pay, you know. So
Well, the
maybe we
fact
can
that they didn't do away with the narco trafficking, and it's most of the opium in the world or heroin comes from there, that's another deliberate thing that we've done.
Well, we watched that. We allowed when the Mujahideen, when they were fighting, our people that we put together to fight the Russians. These people, and some would say that even some of their advisors, American and Western advisors, were, you know, deeply involved in the narcotics. That's when the narcotics exploded, because you may remember the Taliban eliminated that. So, but now it's half of the GDP, and everyone knows that as to who is the drug dealer.
So we've got.
This is the Kabul Education University. The program I am in, this is in Kabul itself. These are some school teachers preparing for a luncheon. This is, you know, water is very, very scarce. You can see, you know, that water is a big problem, and you can see people doing manual work. So, you know, because they have very little tools, very little money. You know, these are roads in Kabul, unpaved. Only 1/5 of the roads in Kabul are paved. Most of them are like this. So it's very dusty in the summer, and it's very muddy in the winter time.
Which you have pretty extremes of both?
Yes, yes. Whether you have, you know, it has incredible places like this fortress is 500 years old. This is the office of a school principal. And you will see this school. This is about 4 miles from the Ministry of Education in Kabul. This is a little school with about 900 students, boys and girls. You can see, these pictures were taken last month. You know, that's the source of water for about 900 people, the pump.
When
and
it
you
works.
Can see when it works. And those are classrooms, you know, and that's a classroom. They're sitting literally on mud with a little something, a piece of cloth on it. And, you know, there's no ventilation, there's no electricity, and it gets about 100 degrees in the summertime and maybe 25 degrees in the winter. And this is a classroom. Again, as I said, 4 miles from the Ministry of Education, maybe 4 miles from the American Embassy.
Do they have books?
Very few people have books because, you know, money disappears. And this is the same school. You know, you can see what's done.
Is that Persian or?
It's Pashto and Persian Farsi. So this gives you an idea. You know, that's a classroom. These people are lucky because, you know, there's a roof or there's a tent. This is the outhouse. There's no plumbing, as I said. You know, there's no proper toilet. Or this is the library in the school, a tiny library is smaller than half of the size of this thing.
So they can't even provide honey buckets like we do in this
Right,
country for
right,
a rock concert or whatever.
And you know, even little girls, these are first and second and third graders, have to wear the scarf and the uniform, you can see. You know, and that's, as I said, is the only source of water. There's no playground, there's nothing there. There's no cafeteria, no gym, no lab, you know, nothing except these tents and rooms, and some of the rooms are containers actually converted into. These are containers, you know, that when the Americans take, you know, weapons and things in them, then they're sold in the market, and people turn them into stores, classrooms, or just live in them. This is the wall of the school, and that's a big swamp. You can see it.
Boy, it must
You know,
reek.
filthy. It reeks, but also it's a mosquito. It's a breeding ground. This school operates 3 shifts. This is in Kabul, and these kids are waiting for the second shift because this is a problem. There are schools that operate 4 shifts. A school day means 2 hours and 20 minutes in Afghanistan. That's it.
That's it. That's not much.
Because they have to circulate, you know, use the space. Right. This is, again, the same school.
So as along with helping to organize this school system, you're also teaching then?
Yes, yes. Well, I teach at the, you know, I teach the teachers of teachers, teacher education faculty. This is, again, another side of the same school. You can see the filth. You know, you can see it's a graveyard, and that fortress, again, as I said, that's more than 500 years old, and it's still standing there indicating. But this is Kabul, you know, see all these mud houses, the unpaved roads, you know, people squat. This is the group that I'm teaching. Now, these are all university faculty. They teach, you know, they train middle and high school teachers, but they themselves only have BAs and BS degrees. So the program is designed to train these people for 4 semesters, give them master's degrees, and give them some know-how and ideas. And
will they be teaching in the major cities, or they
Yes.
going out into the country?
Yeah,
or?
no, they'll be teaching in major cities. They actually, there are 17 teacher training institutions, and these people, and they're exactly half men and half women. They come from all over the country. Now, we're in Jalalabad now, and this is the Jalalabad University. This is the university, Nangarhar University, which is the 2nd largest university.
It's in the northern?
This is their cafeteria. I know it's in the southeast of Kabul.
So that's
this is the cafeteria.
That's where the Taliban is gaining their power back.
Yes, yes. And this is the cafeteria. You know,
Looks like a prison cafeteria.
It looks like a prison, and they're not sitting on the chairs because the benches are so filthy. So that's why they're squatting like that, and they're waiting in line, and there's no hot water. So there's this is a dormitory. A dorm room. It could be anywhere from 8 to 20 people. This is also a dorm room because some of them have to cook for themselves. And again, you know, there are no facilities. You know, that's a hall. We're still on the Nangarhar University campus, which is about 150 miles from, you know, the capital. This is one of the computer lab, you know, a small computer room. So this is a school. This is a school, you know. There's no building here. It's on the university campus. There are 5,000 students here from 1st grade through 6th grade, boys and girls. And it gets to about 115 degrees in the summer now. It's probably 110 degrees here, and you can see they're outdoors. You know, this is still in the southeastern, you know, in Jalalabad.
Is that a river that was leading?
Yeah, that was a river, you know, and sugarcane, you know. These are some colleagues. We're about to depart the city. It gets very warm here. These containers, they're bringing weapons and supplies for the American forces from Pakistan to Kabul, and about 25% of these containers get either stolen or bombed. These are internally displaced people, you know, in the country. People just live in the open. You will see tents, you know, or mud houses. I think you can see tents in the background. Nomads, you know, traveling from one part of the country to another. You know, it's a hard existence. On the left is our SUV, and these are internally displaced people. They think about at least 500,000 internally displaced people live wherever they can find land.
So they don't even have refugee camps
status
for them. They're just
right. No, they're being displaced by bombings or fighting or whatever, and so they move from one place to another.
Or by the machinations of the local strong-armed
warlords.
men.
Yes,
Warlords,
yes,
yeah.
yes, yes.
Well, at least there's fish.
Yes, yes. Yeah, fresh. When we were traveling here, those are armored cars. We were not, I was not. This is interesting, the little white stones. This shows that this area has been demined now. It's safe to walk over here because Afghanistan still has the largest landmines in the world. Still about 7 million landmines in the country.
7 million?
Yes, yes. This is the secretary to this master's degree program. We're back in Kabul now. You know, the traffic jams are horrendous. And, you know, you can see this, you know, building. These are right in Kabul itself, not very far from the International Continental Hotel. In fact, my sister lives right across the street from these people. They've been living here like this for years. There's no place for them. So we're back in Kabul University, and, you know, they do teach computers, and that's a typical classroom. This is a typical hall. You can see this building has not been painted in 30 years. You know, they don't have, you know, this is a biology class with nothing in it except a little board and the instructor. And you see those concrete blocks? This is actually, you know, very close to where we live. The house on the right is, you know, where we lived. And this is the classroom for our students. These are now, again, teacher education faculty from throughout the country. This room is nice because there's USAID money here. So, you know, it's nicely painted. It has a cooler, it has a heater, there's electricity, you know, there are nice boards. And
it's adequate anyway,
yes,
but it's not
adequate.
plush by any means.
Right, it's adequate, but not big enough.
Compare that to the war rooms of the armed forces.
Yeah, this woman is very famous, Nancy Dupree. Her husband was a famous anthropologist. She's so committed to Afghanistan, you know. She continues to work there and try to help. There's a quail fight. You will see a picture of the quails.
Quail?
Quails, yes. You see the...
Little birds?
In the middle, yes.
Oh, be
yes.
darned.
Cockfights. Every place that is any place, you know, has these huge concrete blocks or, you know, sandbags, huge sandbags. This is, you know, girls going to school. The sidewalks, as you can see, are mud.
Boy,
this is how it gets in the winter when it's wet. It's very hard to walk because it's mud up to your ankle, you know. This is the entrance to the university building, one of the buildings. This is the grave of the man who was killed by you see a wreckage of war still, you know, that's a tank, you know.
Whatever people can't find a use for, it still sits there then.
Yes, yes, but people were cannibalized. They would use whatever they can. This was the grave of President Dawood, who was killed by the communist coup in 1978, April of 1978. The warlords just take the land, you know, public lands, and divided them amongst themselves and build and then sell it to the people. There's no law, there's no order, you know, people just take whatever they can. These are actually, it's too bad. This is my room, actually. It's my room where I stayed.
Are you being paid for your work back there, or are you volunteering?
Just living expenses.
Just living expenses?
Yes, yes. That's the entrance to Kabul Education University. The facility itself was built when the Russians were in power in the early 80s. And this was their, but this shows you an idea. These are university undergraduates. The dress, you know, I thought Americans would be interested in how people dress. So you will not see a woman without a scarf. And many of these women will have the burqa in their, you know, brief and case, and when they leave the university, they put that on for protection because they're afraid of being kidnapped, you know.
Or stoned.
Yes, or stoned. This is the cafeteria of the Kabul Education University. It was contracted out to somebody. And you have a few things, and you can see, you know,
I don't see any markets with piles of food or any of that.
Well, you will see them. You will see them later. This is the campus of the university still. It's a very nice location, but there's no maintenance, you know. There's no running water in these buildings. Electricity is pretty bad. Again, you know, you can see women have to dress very, very modestly. This is the so-called gym for this university with really very little. And that's the ceiling of the gym, you know, that's mold. This is mold, the walls of the gym, like that. You can see it. That's a classroom. In our left, you see, this is the university classroom. And these are faculty apartments sort of on one side of the university campus. Again, the cafeteria and the little courtyard of the cafeteria. It's mostly unhealthy food, actually. That's what they serve. But there's not much to eat, and this is the only thing students can afford. This is still the campus, and hopefully we'll move to some other
Is
kinds
there
of pictures.
much while they're just cycling through these, is there much food being grown in that country?
Squatters, not enough. These are squatters, you know, they will just, people would live wherever. There are people living, but you saw there is no there are no windows, you know, in that building. Again, this is our classroom for the master's degree students. The interesting thing is that these people, they belong to different ethnic, tribal, you know, regional and religious groups, but they learn to work together, you know, get along, cooperate. This is a bee, what do you call it? He's producing honey. It's very close to the university, and this is his work and his business, you know. I thought it would be interesting.
Well, if he's got bees, then they must be collecting the pollen
Yes.
to make the honey from
Yes,
somewhere.
yes,
So.
they fly across the street. This was a palace built by the first modernizing king in 1920s. And then it was the National Museum, and that's how it looks like now.
It was blown up during
Yes. And during
when
these
the
wars.
Americans went in there, or
No,
the Russians?
it was before, the Afghans did this. But you see a lot of this. You see a lot of wreckage of war everywhere, you know. These are some soldiers guarding that. This is that
same
this
palace?
was beautiful. I remember seeing this when it was intact, you know. And you see again those concrete walls. Embassies, you know, military establishments, ministries, foreigners, they have these, you know, because people are afraid. And look at this. Behind this is the National Parliament. There are two lines of these huge concrete barriers.
This is Kabul?
This is Kabul now, yes.
So there's a real disparity between the rich and the poor there.
A lot. You will see some, yes, you can see some already, you know, that's schoolgirls going, you can see homes like this. Look at this. This is, you know, probably a 20-room mansion. And then you see mud houses right next to it. You see the mannequins? They're all Western?
Uh-huh.
Yes. This is a university dorm for women.
Well, there's always advertising no matter where you go.
Yes, yes. And this is the garbage collection, you know, these people with their shovels. But it's a city of 5 million people, and you see the American influence, Kentucky Fried Chicken. And you see, these are money changers. You know, they're the university campus. This is, again, the university campus. People going to school. This is a high school on my way to the university. A high school, again, several shifts. You know, this high school operates 4 shifts in a given day. And you see the mud on the road? That's a normal street, you know, in Kabul itself.
Do most of the children have access to education since there's so many shifts?
This is somebody's business. Half of the school-age children go to school, only half. The other half are not in school.
The 2.5 hours a day that they get.
Right, yeah. You see an explosion of private schools, private universities, and private courses, you know, because the government simply cannot provide what it should be providing.
Well, because they're not given the money.
Right. Or, you know, government priorities are different. We can stop this, Jim,
Okay,
if
sure.
rather.
As this goes on, this is very interesting.
We can think till
but we're down to about 20 minutes of the show,
Yes.
so there's a few.
This is a private school, too, a private school for the wealthy people who can afford it. So you have 2 societies, you know, in Afghanistan, really. This store, there's a little girl that managed that store, a little girl who was supporting her whole family. These are our bodyguards, and that's the house where we live. I lived, you know. So we have bodyguards, armed bodyguards, 24 hours.
And that's in the north, which is supposed
This
to
is in
be
the city, yes.
Which is supposed to be
This
safe.
is the capital.
Yeah.
This is the capital. Afghanistan has some excellent marble. You can see, you know, those are natural.
Does it come from
marbles.
from that area?
Yeah, a little south of Kabul.
Beautiful.
Again, you know, girls going to school and mud walls and mud on the street and mud everywhere.
Pizza burger.
Yes, yes. Yes.
That's really something.
It's incredible, actually. If you have money, you can find anything that you'd be looking for important almost. Yes. So.
Well, all right, we can come back to the
Yeah.
studio now.
Yeah, we can.
We could go on forever with that. That's
Yes, that's fine.
There's a couple things. Now you mentioned traffic jams. They don't have water. They don't have electricity, but there's gasoline available enough that people can drive their cars.
Bad gasoline. This is now a city, you know, that was really designed for about maximum 50,000 cars. 50,000 cars and perhaps 500,000 people. The streets are the same, pretty much. Everything is the same, except now you have 4.5 to 5 million people. And 60% of the dwellings are illegal. There's no plan. You just find or buy a piece of land and you occupy it, you build some kind of a structure, you live in it. And most of the, you know, homes are unsafe. If there's an earthquake or a flood or an avalanche, this will be a disaster of monumental proportions. So no regular services because the government simply is unable or unwilling to provide the basic social services. And so now you have in this city about 700,000 cars, and most of the cars are second-hand. People who go to Dubai or the Gulf states or Germany buy second-hand cars, drive them, and you have both kind of cars with steerings on the right and steerings on the left.
Oh boy.
Both. The roads are the same roads. You know, there's hardly any regulations, and you can get a license by just paying somebody. They will bring you a license to your home without even bothering to ask you
if you know how to
you've
drive.
ever been in a car. So it's incredible. And the gasoline, in fact, the energy minister was fired because, you know, everything is a racket. You know, so you sell the gasoline, you think it's grade A, but it's grade C maybe. And there's no control, you know, it's mostly leaded gasoline. And so Kabul is one of the filthiest places in the world, and it's one of the, you know, most dangerous places in the world, between the air pollution, the soil pollution, the water pollution, you know, human waste, animal waste. It's a very unhealthy place.
Well, that brings up my next question. You mentioned the mold, which made me stop to think about health. We talk about education, but how about the health and the availability of doctors and nurses and all that?
There are some. In Kabul, actually, there's an oversupply of doctors and clinics because everyone wants to be in Kabul because of safety, security, and, you know, people think that's where the action is and that's where money is and so forth. So, but once you leave the city, you know, there are no services. Afghanistan still ranks at the very bottom when it comes to child mortality, lifespan of 44 and 45 years, or women dying and during birth. In health-wise and literacy, you know, and longevity, calorie intake, hygiene, it's at the very bottom of the scale. And you can see it. I mean, you know, people have short lives, and people age very fast, and there's a lot of mortality of all kinds.
So even though the doctors are there, they probably don't have no medicine.
People don't have money. You know, again, this is a country, people think about half the population is unemployed. And so if you drive by the Iranian, Indian, the Gulf states embassies, people line up in the middle of the night hoping to get a visa. Anyone who can is leaving the country, and anyone who can get their children out is getting them out because there's very little employment now. There's no effort to build an infrastructure of the economy, industry productive work. And the work that people do, it's all, the one thing that there's a lot of work and, you know, development is construction, because there's money to be made, and people would rather buy land, build it, rent it to foreigners, because there's no trust in the banks.
Right,
and so
yeah.
people, but also there's a lot of, you know, illicit money through drugs and smuggling of weapons and smuggling of humans. It's a disaster economically, you know, and educationally and health-wise, you know, food insufficiency. It's a very bad situation.
You hear a lot about, like in Palestine, a lot of the people in Palestine become refugees, and there's millions or large groups of Palestinians in Jordan and some of these other countries.
Yes,
Any of the
millions.
countries surrounding Afghanistan taking in refugees, providing anything for them?
They did, you know. Remember, Afghanistan had the largest refugee population, maybe 7 million.
Wow.
Between a third of the population became refugees during the height of the war when the Russians invaded. And then, since 2001, half of those people have come back. But they estimate that there are still about 1 million refugees in Iran and 2 million in Pakistan. In those countries, their own economies are in trouble, and their political situation is very unstable.
Yeah.
So they're encouraging, inducing, or forcing the refugees out. And there are Afghan refugees. The Afghan diaspora is everywhere. And unfortunately, every week almost you read something, a boat sinking with 70 or 100 Afghans off the coast of Australia or Indonesia, or so many people dying in a container because they were being smuggled. Human smuggling is a major business in Afghanistan and around Afghanistan. People, again, would do anything, pay thousands of dollars to get out, and hoping to reach the West where there's money, employment, and opportunities. But a lot of them die, and these are all young men.
Well, we've talked a lot about how bad it is, but, I still see smiles on those faces, and these people still have hope. It just seems to me they're a very strong, resilient people.
They are. And one of the things that you see a lot of, actually, wedding halls. So people are building wedding halls because people continue to get married, and weddings are a big business, and it's a big thing, people go bankrupt. Just to have a wedding. To have a wedding, you have to pay a dowry outside of the city.
Right.
In the cities, there's no dowry, but you have to invite anywhere, and the more people you invite, the more prestige,
Right.
So you invite people both from the bride side and the groom side, people you don't even know maybe, but the more wedding invitation cards you send, supposedly the higher your status and prestige.
And the more auspicious the marriage will be. Maybe.
Yes, and as I said, it literally bankrupts some people. But also kids are kids, children play. You see children playing in young people, and but there's so little in terms of entertainment. So you see dog fights in the winter, in fall, winter, and early spring. Dog fights are a big entertainment thing, but also there's a lot of betting going on. And you see people fighting quails or cockfights.
You mentioned that. Yes.
Cockfights. I have pictures, but they're not in this collection. So people try to find a way to entertain themselves. Those who have electricity or generators will watch televisions nonstop, and there are a lot of FM stations, because it's very cheap to set up. People have to live, but also these people have been like this. I mean, you have a whole generation of people who have known nothing but war, turmoil, chaos, mayhem, death and destruction, so they get used to it. But also, I think as you pointed out, the Afghans are very resilient. They're incredible people. I mean, the way people survive physically, it's you respect them a great deal.
And they're very resourceful, it seems like.
Yeah, you have to be, otherwise you disappear. I mean, people would eke out a living somehow. So there's a lot of commerce, little things. So you see little boys actually sometimes, or old men, just maybe having 10 or 20 boiled eggs in a basket, selling you that, or plastic bags they buy here and sell here, or maybe bottled water, or just water from, they will take the water from a tap and then sell it retail, you drink a glass of water. And so people have to do that, or, day laborers, farmers. But there's also an underside to this survival, and that is awful things happen too. That is, say, families will sell a child in order to provide food for the rest of the family.
Probably.
You see this a lot. Girls or boys sometimes,
really?
To slavery. Yes. Slavery,
slavery.
Or fighting, or abuse.
Prostitution.
Prostitution.
Well, that happens all over the world, but
it's worse under those conditions, and respectable people, women have been forced into prostitution. Drugs are an epidemic. There are more than 1 million addicts at least. A lot of them are children and women. There are a lot of suicides amongst young women in particular. Corruption, I mean, if you're a school teacher, you're paid maybe $100.
a month?
A month, that's maximum almost. If you're a college professor, you may be paid between, say, $400 and $800. At the same time, the cost of living has skyrocketed because there's so much money in the capitals, foreign money, or foreigners with money. So everything has gone up. Transportation, food, rent, everything. So a civil servant, a police may be paid $150 a month, for example, or $200 maximum. So that's why you have such corruption. People literally extort money. So even if you go to a bank and want to deposit money, you got to pay somebody to take your money, or whatever you do. Exams. People sell exams. People sell this. People sell that. Dated medicine or dated food. So they will go to Pakistan or Iran, buy stuff that has expired, bring it into Afghanistan and sell it because 80% of the people are illiterate and they can't tell, if this thing has expired.
They'd probably take the chance
or if
anyway.
this is bad. They take. So you have mass poisonings, and so this violence and this war and this poverty and misery, has they have, tremendous cost for the population.
Well, we're getting down to the last few minutes of the program. We're about 7 minutes. So do you have any hope that's going to change under the Obama administration? I imagine you get asked that a lot.
Well, we're hoping, but also the other thing that there's a lot of anticipation. There's a presidential election and also election for the provincial councils, like provincial legislators.
Are they real elections?
On August 20th.
Oh, it's coming.
On August 20th. Well, the presidential election was in 2004, and it was not fair and free and secret. There was a lot of fraud in the last election. Money, coercion, threats, assassinations, probably even worse. So this time, again, the election commissions, the UNAMA, United Nations Mission for Afghanistan, Kai Eddy, who is the UN Special Representative in Afghanistan, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, International Rescue Commission, the International Committee of the Red Cross, everyone already knows that people are taking a whole bunch of registration cards, or people collecting cards from the women, or people being paid, or people being fed, or people being promised actually positions. Everyone knows this. The State Department, our ambassador in Kabul, Carl Eikenberry, everyone is aware of this, that the election will be far from fair and free and clean. But they have reconciled, and the international community is going to spend about $300 million on this election. They spent $500 million on a farce, phony election. The last time they would spend the same amount of money, or $300 million, which is a lot of money, for Afghanistan.
A lot of people.
Yes, or build many universities, hospitals, irrigation system, factories, but that money just to legitimate, this government, which the Americans are invested in, because these are the people, again, President Karzai, that was groomed and selected by the Americans, and the Americans feel committed to it. So we'll see, but just most recently, people think that actually there may not be a winner the first time around on August 20th. I'll let you know, because I'll be going back before the election.
You're going back soon then?
Yes. But also that there may be a runoff, and it's conceivable. But also, this government has been so inept and so corrupt, that I think the international community is becoming disenchanted. They would like to see a different government.
A different government.
We'll
so
see.
Not only is he corrupt, but he's a puppet.
Yes, of course. But Americans thought that he would be great. And the Americans, the UN, the European community, Ambassador Khalilzad and Lakhdar Brahimi and Solano, and these people thought he would be great. Though he's a very average, ordinary person, surrounded by criminals, known criminals like these Northern Alliance people, like Dostum, who was exiled, and then he's being now reappointed as Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces, the man who actually killed at least 3,000 war prisoners. Because he wants to get reelected, and there are people who would rather see somebody who can bring justice, development, law and order, working government, better governance, things like that. So we'll just have to see.
That's generally how it goes here. We got about a little over 3 minutes here,
Well,
and I'm just wondering, we've covered a lot of ground here. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you'd wanted to talk about?
Well, I think what we need to talk about is that clearly there's no military solution to this conflict. I think what we need to do, but also most people now do not like and do not want the Americans in NATO forces. They now think that this is an occupation. The Taliban and the Taliban government and the Afghans had nothing to do with 9/11. And the Taliban wanted to solve this problem through peaceful means, but America refused. And there are very few Qaeda. Qaeda is not to be confused with the Taliban. The Taliban are simply, and the people who are resisting the American occupation and NATO occupation are simply mostly nationalists. They're not to be dismissed as fanatics who resist modernization.
They want their country back.
They want their country back, but I think the international community the NATO Americans should be replaced with UN peacekeeping forces, and then the international community should make a long-term commitment for reconstruction and development, and I think they should work for, redeveloping education, agriculture, healthcare, transportation, hydroelectric power and things like that, and not abandon the country. But to insist on, a military solution, we're just wasting a lot of American money, a lot of American lives. Thousands of Americans have been killed and maimed. About 700 Americans have been killed so far in the last, 8 years. And we have squandered more than $100 billion on this operation. But also, Americans need to know that in addition to the regular army, the United States has 68,000 contractors, like DynCorp, Blackwater, and other kinds of contractors who are also fighting. And Americans don't. We have an official army, and then we have a shadow army, which is, which costs us money. And Americans don't know about this. So we need to work toward peace, reconciliation, and redevelopment.
You say contractors, you think, oh, they're building bridges and
no, they're
providing
not.
water.
They're doing laundry. No, they're doing, in fact, I have a excellent series of pictures. Blackwater, who shot a young man for no reason whatsoever, and he died after being in a coma for a month.
And we got, what, 30 seconds?
Yes, well,
I appreciate you coming on the program. It's just about over. But folks can go to Lewis and Clark's website, just Google it, and go to the staff page, right?
Faculty.
Faculty page, and you can find out a little bit more about Zaher and what he's doing. And he's done some great write-ups and some photographs as well.
Yes.
So I want to thank the crew. The crew has been, they keep all the seams of this program put together so that we can bring this news to you. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll be back next week.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you very much,
much.
Zaher.
Yes.
It's always an eye-opener.